Hey, happy Tuesday, everybody. Happy Tuesday. If you're on here, get those likes up, tag anybody. You're sure this was someone that you think may find it interesting. Also, again, shout out to the sponsor of the week, Dapper Gents. Shout out to you. Also, thanks to everybody who's here dropping comments. If you would like to show support to the show, you can find me on Cash App or Venmo, Shay Sade. Also, super chats are open. So if you send in a super chat, I will be sure to acknowledge you and read your super chat. So just to get into today's topic, I asked something about a week ago. I asked this question regarding Ketanji Brown Jackson and her, recent nomination to as a Supreme Court judge, and it was this question as to whether or not this is a win. If this is something that is going to impact Black America, is this something that we believe is really going to make a big difference? Is this a win for Black women, or is it neither? So it was really interesting. It was really interesting to see just the response, the overall response regarding this thing. I saw so many different comments, all these varying point of views, and so I thought it was something worth talking about. Just because when we see these kinds of things happen, when we see, people of color, Black folks in particular, get in places of power, there's always this narrative that's gone out around it and how it's supposed to impact change. And so it was interesting for me to see what people actually felt about it. So I'm going to bring it up real quick. I want to bring it up and just kind of quickly breeze through some of the comments, and then I'm going to share my perspective on it. Let me see if I can find it real quick. Let me pull up that poll. Okay. All right. So I'm going to try to share it. I'm going to do a bit of sharing this all across, so y'all bear with me. Where'd you go? Let's see. Okay. All right, can y'all see it? I think I can see it. Okay. Yeah, so let's just poll, y'all. If you didn't see it already, I asked this 4 days ago, and it said Ketanji Brown Jackson was recently confirmed to the Supreme Court. As I'm sure you all have heard, is this a win for the Black American community or a win for Black women? So here we go. We had 8% saying when one succeeds, we all succeed. That's a pretty small percentage. 5% said this is a win for Black women. It's about time we focus on empowering women. That was a measly 5%. That was the least, the least selected answer, I guess. 57% said none. She represents the white man she married. Don't be fooled. So this actually got the biggest response. This one right here got the biggest response. 57%. 22% says it don't matter her race or gender as long as she's qualified. 22%. So again, this was the top one. People saying, look, don't be fooled. Look at who she's married to. That's going to determine what is it she does. And then after that, the response was, look, it don't really matter about her race or her gender as long as she's qualified. So that was kind of the general sentence. And then it was kind of split after that. We had 9% that was other. So let's get briefly into the comments here. See what is being said. I guess I can sort this by the top comments. Okay, so this is by Game Dreamer 58. Shout out to Game Dreamer 58. It says, education-wise, she's definitely accomplished a lot. Now, in regards to the actual work she's done as a judge, and so on, it doesn't inspire much confidence. Her track record proves that you'll be more of a benefit to the white males in particular than she would the Black community. She's just a face. That is it. So that was his perspective. Looks like he got about 21 likes. This one says over here, it's not really a win for any Black people. We didn't choose her, nor has she done anything for the Black community as far as I know. Now that representation is great, love to see it, but we need to move past symbolic wins and aim for tangibles. White people never settle for symbolic wins, nor should we. That got 57 likes. Now here's one. Here's another one that was pretty popular. Actually, this one got 42 likes. I'll go here. It says, I hate when people try to live through the accomplishments of others. She got this position for herself. She will use the position to serve herself. People like to do this whole communal thing until they get the power, then they forget about who they are. That was interesting. That was some interesting feedback there. Let's see another one. This got 37 likes. So let's see what this is saying, y'all. This is the first time I'm reading some of this, to be honest. It said she shouldn't be there. She's way too indecisive on protecting kids, and she's too woke, saying she doesn't know what a woman is being She's not a biologist, so he wasn't. So I guess it sounds like he wasn't feeling it. It says it's the Democratic, and then here it says it's the Democrats' way of keeping their most loyal supporters happy. They know it doesn't take much to keep us voting blue. Here I have another one that says, in the end, it doesn't matter what you are actually doing for the Black community, tangibly speaking, because the time of symbolism is over. Here's another one. It says, theoretically, it's supposed to be like if one succeeds, that one can open the door for the others. It used to be like that. This was when the Black community was thriving. Ketanji Brown Jackson is out of this realm. Considering Jim Crow's Joe history with BP, we cannot consider this a win. Everything this man has touched has been negative for the Black community, like literally everything. So those are just a few comments, y'all. If y'all really want to get into it, you can go back there. We had about 1,800 votes, so that was a pretty good. We got some good response there. 155 comments. Go check it out if you really want to get deep into the comment section and just see what people are saying. But we see there's some varying views here. There is some varying views, different perspectives on this whole topic. So I'm going to just share my whole thoughts on this, guys. And for those of you who are here or just, chiming in, get those likes up, y'all. Get those likes up. Tag anybody. Share this with someone that you think they find it interesting. I just wanted to go briefly into this whole situation with Ketanji Brown Jackson and just see where people were thinking, like how they're feeling about it, if they think this is going to be a win, if they think this is really a big deal for the Black community, opening doors for Black community, for Black women, for women, or if it's just one of those symbolic gestures. So here's my thought on it. Now, I certainly don't pretend to be an expert at all that she's done. I have not. So I will be honest and say that I've done, by my brief research. I have been following her for years, so I know, a little bit about her and just what I've seen as far as her track record. She's obviously very, very qualified. I think no one can disclaim that. She seems to have a pretty clean. Her qualifications precede her. There's no other way to put it. So she wasn't put here, just necessarily because they were trying to fill a quota. Like, she obviously does have the credentials to qualify her to be in this position. Also seems like she has a loving family. They had her husband there and they talked about their relationship. He was crying, I think, at one particular point, or at the very least teary-eyed during one of the hearings and confirmations. She has her father and her brother and her mom there supporting her. She has her sisters here, and she even talked about, the importance of her family and faith in one of her speeches. And so obviously family means a lot to her. She mentioned how her relationship with her dad inspired her to go into law. I think her parents were both public school teachers, but her dad went on to get a degree in law later on. So, family means a lot to her. Family means a lot to her. She comes from seems like she comes from a loving family. She went to Harvard, which is actually where she met her now husband. She's worked hard. She's done things in her career that have essentially gotten to this place. And so if I'm just looking at this from an individual level, I think this is a great win for her, a great win for her family. And, it's one of those things where it's like, yeah, this seems like that she's something she's totally qualified for and she deserves it. If you were to compare her against some of the other justices, as far as track record is concerned, her resume is, I think she deserves to be there, like I said, based upon her qualifications. Now, do I look at this and think that this is, now that she's there, she's going to open all these doors and all of a sudden change things dramatically for the Black community and going to be fighting the cause and really leading the charge in bringing institutional change? Not necessarily, to be perfectly honest. And, and here's what I think happens a little bit too often. And we do see politicians play into some of the symbolic gestures, as the commenters even alluded to in the post earlier, where just because somebody has a Black face or they have an ethnic face or they're Hispanic or Asian, whatever it may be, they'll use these things as symbolic gestures. They can sometimes take people who may be qualified, but they'll try to position them as, oh, well, because they're Black, now therefore they're representing the Black community. Knowing good and very well that person is qualified, but they're not necessarily one that is involved in community organizing, or they don't have a track record of being one that's actively been there to try to build or push back or bring change in that arena. But like I said, the politics, y'all. You know how this stuff works. They'll choose somebody that fits an image. Like for example, Kamala Harris. She wasn't black until she needed to be, right? Then it became a black thing. Then all of a sudden she was doing celebrating Kwanzaa and all this kind of different stuff. And we know good and very well that the way the way that she was living uh was a lot different than the way it was portrayed when she was, when the whole nomination thing was going on. So like I'm saying, like they'll do this stuff. I feel like, and sometimes whether it's the media or the politicians or them working together, they'll kind of paint these pictures like, oh, this person is representing the whole black community and whatever party that they're in. And we know good and very well at the end of the day, most people who are there are just doing it for themselves and doing it for their family. So I honestly don't think this is anything different. I think she's well qualified. She's had her own personal dreams and things that she wanted to do for her family and for herself. And she's gotten there. And I'm like, hands off, like good for you. Like hands clap. Like it is a good image. It looks good. And I think that's great. But am I now expecting her? Do I now expect that she's not gonna all take all the problems of the black community, all the problems of black women, and lead the charge in that? No, I don't think so, because she doesn't have a track record to show otherwise. And far too often, we see this being portrayed, we see this being pushed in media. Sometimes you even see this in like black churches. I was talking to somebody the other day and they were talking about at their church, they're doing all these meetings and putting all these presentations together for, for Ketanji Brown Jackson, and talking about how this is going to impact the black community. And so you got the little, little fish fries and church drives, all this kind of stuff going around where they're getting around the person because they're black, because they look a certain way. But that doesn't necessarily mean that just because that person is black in the position of power, that means that they are actively going to be doing things to try to impact the community. So that's the way I see it. I think this is a win for her. You know what I mean? Win for the Democrats. I know what somebody has said, but I don't see it as anything else. I have no expectation that she's going to get there and just completely radicalize things, that we're going to just see all this change for black women or all this change for the black community. I don't. I think she's going to do her job as the best that she sees fit, and it's going to continue to be the status quo. It's going to continue to be what it's been. And so I think sometimes it's just unrealistic when these people get in positions of power and we automatically think that they're just now going to be these big revolutionary community organizers when they haven't had a track record to show that that's really been their goal. You know what I mean? Like if she doesn't have a track record to show that that was necessarily her focus, then it shouldn't be now just because she's in this position. It has to become her focus just because she's black. That's it don't work like that. So to those people in the comments who were saying, yeah, like, this is not, no, let's not be fooled. Just because she's black in a position of power does not mean that now she has to be the next leader, right? Like, no, she's a black woman. She happens to be a black woman and happens to have that look, but I think she's going to continue to do what she's going to continue to do. She hasn't shown anything in the past that shows, again, that she's trying to be the organizer or the leader when it comes to bringing systematic change in the black community. And because she doesn't have a track record to show that, if she does, guys, correct me if I'm wrong, because she doesn't have a track record to show that, we can't expect that now all of a sudden that she's in this position of power, she's going to become one. That's not consistent with a track record. So, that's just my thoughts. And I think some people just be supporting black folks just because they black. And I'm like, I get it on one level, but I think that can quickly fall into disappointment, because like I said, just because somebody is black doesn't necessarily mean that they have the right perspective, doesn't necessarily mean that they have the right even motives, right? Or any of that. It could just be like they're black and they're in power. And sometimes these politicians are smart. Sometimes people will literally choose people. We usually choose black folks, people of color, just to fit a quota, just to try to appease voters, with the understanding that they're not going to change anything. That does happen. But like I said, I'm happy for her. Like I'm totally happy for her and her family. And it's like I'm not like mad, like, oh my gosh, I can't believe she's in there, this is a horrible loss. Like, I don't feel that way at all. I'm more neutral. I'm just like, I'm not putting any expectations on her that she's now going to be bringing all this change to the Black community. I think if anything, this shows that, yeah, a person can work hard individually, and if they have the right opportunities and the right resources and they're around the right people, they can go far. I think it shows that. But to me, that's the lesson. Nothing more, nothing less. So that's just, like I said, that is just my perspective. Now, if any of you guys have more information on this, you can let me know. Like I said, I don't pretend to be the expert on her background, but just on some of the deep dive that I've done, that's kind of what I got from it. Let me see. Shout out to Don DeMarco with the 5 on the super chat. I see. Democrats solidifying part of their strongest base, Black women. No other group votes with such a large percentage for Democrats. I appreciate the support. So I see, yeah, tokenism. That's what I was saying. Tokenism and symbolism is real. And you know what? This is actually, I didn't want to bring this up also because this speaks to, I think this kind of reiterates what I was saying before, that as far as what to expect from her, now we'll see. Guys, well, I mean, we can all put out our predictions there, but we will actually see once, once she's there. But there's this article I recently read where she was kind of sharing her insight on what she's planning on doing. And this speaks to, I think, her overall mindset and how she's going to move. Let me see. Let's see if I can. Wait, this is not. Yeah. Okay. So who was Biden's Supreme Court pick? Ketanji Brown Jackson, and the inside story behind her name. So I just want to quickly go over what it's covering off here. Okay, yeah. So when word came that Supreme Court Justice Stephen Breyer was retiring, the spotlight immediately shifted to who might replace them. And getting a lot of attention was Ketanji Brown Jackson, who clerked for Breyer about 20 years ago. On Friday, the spotlight grew even brighter when it was revealed that President Joe Biden would nominate her as the first Black woman to sit on the nation's high court. The White House confirmed Biden would introduce Jackson to the public on Friday afternoon, an exceptionally qualified and historic nominee. A Harvard Law School graduate and now a federal appeals court judge, Jackson, despite her professional and academic accolades, considers hard work to be one of the most important factors throughout her life that got her to where she is today. She was born 51 years ago in 1970 in Washington, D.C. Her parents, both public school teachers, had moved to Washington from Miami in the post-civil rights era. She was recounted in a 2017 speech that her parents, wanting to show pride in her African ancestry, asked her aunt, who was then in the Peace Corps in Africa, for a list of African girl names. Taking one of her suggestions, Jackson's parents named her Ketanji Onyeka, I hope I did not butcher that name, which she said they were told translates to lovely one. In 2017, Jackson, in a lecture at the University of Georgia School of Law, revealed more of her personal side, reflecting not just on her legal career, but on dealing with motherhood at the same time. Right now, in fact, I'm in that peculiar stage of life when I experience nearly daily whiplash from the jarring juxtaposition of my two most significant roles, U.S. District Judge on the one hand and mother of teenage daughters on the other, she said. Jackson and her husband, Patrick, and here's a picture of her family. Jackson and her husband, Patrick, a doctor, have 2 daughters, Talia, who was 16, and Lelia, who was 12 years old at the time she told that story. During that same talk, Jackson said her family values include respecting everyone and making your best effort in everything you do. There looks like it's another picture of her and her husband. It says, in our family, we have a mantra that emphasizes prioritization on work over play as one of our first principles. Jackson said, as the girls would testify, do what you need to do before what you want to do is a constant refrain in her house. Jackson is currently serving on the Court of Appeals for the D.C. Circuit, considered the most important federal court next to the Supreme Court, and it has jurisdiction over cases involving Congress. Let me move on. It says, during her confirmation hearing for her current position, Republican senators grilled her on whether she thought race would play a factor in her decision-making. Jackson said, when she considers cases, she is looking at the facts and the law. Why am I having a hard time? I'm having a hard time pronouncing that. I'm methodically and intentionally. I cannot say that right now. I'm methodically and intentionally. Sorry, y'all. I'm methodically and intentionally setting aside personal views, any other inappropriate consideration, she said. I would think that race would be the kind of thing that would be inappropriate to inject in an evaluation of a case. So I want to look at that again real quick, guys. Because again, I think this speaks to what I was saying before. It says, I'm methodically and intentionally setting aside personal views, any other inappropriate consideration. She said, I would think that race would be a thing. I would think that race would be the kind of thing that would be inappropriate to inject in an evaluation of a case. So basically, she's saying, look, I'm not looking at a person's race. I'm not looking at, I'm not looking at it. I'm just going to look at the facts. I'm just going to look at the facts. I'm just going to look at the facts. And again, this goes back to my earlier point where it doesn't appear in her career up to this point that she's really been like actively working, organizing, campaigning, invested in the Black community. And here she even says, it's like, yeah, I'm not looking at this. I'm not going to be looking at race or necessarily trying to lead with that or be sensitive to that. No, I'm just going to look at the facts and move forward. So again, just based upon her own words, if any of us are thinking that now that she's here and now she's going to fight the good cause, or like I said, try to pay special attentions to the issues that disproportionately affect the Black community, no. I think she's going to do her job the best that she sees fit and enjoy her family and, enjoy the people in her life. And that's it. But like I said, putting this expectation on her that all of a sudden she's about to be kumbaya, the savior of the Black community and leading the cause and fighting the cause or whatever that may be. No, because like I said, she doesn't have a track record to do so. And there are some people who I think just have the view that as long as they're Black, I'm just going to follow them and I'm just going to believe that they're going to fight for the Black community, which is just not true. Like I said, there are Black folks out there who are in position of power, who are just as corrupt, who are just as evil, and will smile on your back and stab you smile on your face and stab you in the back if that would get them some money. So like I said, just because a person is Black and in a position of power does not mean that they have good intentions. And so I'm not saying that she has bad intentions. My position though is that I think it's just gonna be status quo. I think it's gonna be essentially what it's been up to this point. I'm not expecting much to change. I think it's a nice win for her, a nice symbolic gesture at best, but I am not expecting much else to come out of this. So those are my thoughts. Those are my thoughts. I am happy for her and her family and her daughters. I'm sure this means a lot to them. And I really wish them the best. I wish them the best. And I hope also that she does stay true to her word as far as just really trying to be just and not lean in any other particular favor other than leaning in the favor of what is right and just. So I hope she does that. I truly, truly, truly do. I truly do. So those are my thoughts. Those are my thoughts. Like I said, I think I'm happy for her. I'm happy for her, but I don't put expectations on her to try to be something that she has not shown to be up to this point. I don't think that's realistic. So anyways, guys, that's all I got. Got a few moments if anybody wants to call in and share their point of view on this. I wanted to touch upon it because like I said, I know it's been a few days now, but I didn't want to leave before giving y'all a chance to let me know what you think. So here we go. Also, guys, if you're here, hit that like button. Hit that like button before you leave or if you just are dropping in. Also, show support to the show on Cash App or Venmo, Shay Shar Day. Also, Super Chats are open. So feel free to show support to the show through Super Chats. So if any of you guys want to call in, feel free to do so. And if not, then I'll shut this down. It's going to be a short live and I will be quite all right with that. So let me guys know what you think. Yeah, I see Black woman, heartwarming Black woman. Ukraine gives reparations. So I'm just now catching up on your guys' comments. She's not a biologist. Yeah, and guys, the reason I put out the question, Black woman versus Black woman. Now, that was just more just for title's sake. Obviously, I think we're a lot better when we work together, obviously. I mean, that's really the only way to survive and thrive is to work together. But unfortunately, sometimes we do things we see things positioned as that. We see things positioned as, oh, this is a win for Black women versus the Black community. Unfortunately, we do see that divide. I don't support it. I do wish that there was more of a conversation of the community, men and women working together. I think that would, like I said, that's just common sense, and that's actually how the only way communities do thrive, as if both parties on both sides are actively working together. Nevertheless, we constantly see that tension being driven, whether it's through media and outlets, the way things are reported, the way things are positioned. We constantly see that divide. So just wanted to speak to that. And yes, guys, if you're here, get those likes up. Like, if anybody wants to call in, feel free to do so. I'll wait a few more moments. And if we don't have anybody, if you guys are all feeling kind of quiet, then it's all good. It's all good. We can wrap this up early, and I can move on to other things. Shout out again to DOD for becoming a member. I think you've maybe I'm tripping. I thought you were already a member. You know what? I did see some of you guys. I saw that there's something happened, I guess, on YouTube where I think it just like kicked out members, because I had somebody call in yesterday and tell me that they had some issues. So if that happened, I'm sorry. I didn't do it. YouTube did it. It wasn't me. But thank you for joining back again. I do appreciate you. You guys, if you become a channel member, you will get access to exclusive content. So be sure to do so. That's where I post my Black Men Built That video series. Yeah, you said you think I got, that's crazy. Yeah, I did not kick you out. I didn't know what was going on. Like, I literally had somebody else yesterday tell me, they're like, I don't know what happened to the membership, but just like kick me out or downgrade me or something. That's so weird. I'm sorry. Well, I hope you're not kicked out anymore. Yeah, so see, I was already a member, something happened. So you're not the only one. That's so strange. YouTube messing with me. You say, what's the number? I'd love to call it. I just posted it. You guys didn't see it? Also, shout out to Graham Dreamer 58 with the 5. I appreciate you. I really do. Guys, super chats are open, so feel free to send through your super chats. Did you say you're not seeing the call in? Okay, let me find it. It's back up there, guys. It is back up there. Wait, where'd it go? Okay, maybe I need to post it again, because I'm trying to cipher through these comments. I can't even find it. Let's see. Let me do this again. Bam. So like I said, I got a little bit of time. Anybody wants to give me their perspective on this. Also, guys, get those likes up if you're here. And super chats are open. Also, Cash App, Venmo, you can show some support and show some love. And it looks like I got a caller. So we'll see what they got in the topic. Better you. There you are.
Hey, Michelle.
You're my regular. I got my regular caller here.
That's right.
What you got? Oh, I got my other regular, Kevin C. I got 2 regulars. So what y'all got? What you got in the topic? I'll start with you, Better You.
So I think on this one, I'm a little bit ignorant. Admittedly, I've researched her, but not as much as I have some others. I feel like she's definitely qualified for the position, just based on some of the things that she's held before in the past. But like a lot of things, I think people aren't really asking some of the most important questions, which to me, in terms of politics, is what is a judge's stance on corporate power? Corporations in America have far too much power. I feel like we need to go trust busting. We need to separate a lot of these businesses. And those are some of the most important questions, which I, at least as of yet, had not found any articles on what some of her stances or past rulers have been. Mm-hmm. And just in terms of her overall, I feel like the fair thing is we kind of got to wait and see, unless she has some things in her track record, which I'm not privy to, that kind of shows otherwise.
Right. No, I hear you. No, I hear you. Kevin C., what you got? What's your take on it?
I'll tell you this. It's good for her. She's the first. She made history. No issue and problems with that. I'm actually getting tired of the point of where we're still making history. We should have already, covered pretty much everything.
Right. Like, really? Like, how many hundreds of years and we're still,
yeah. I mean, we're in the 21st century now. I'm like, doggone it. What happened? Because I'm thinking we covered everything already. And I get it, so this is a win for women. So this is good, not just for Black women, but women in general, because, you had RBG, you got Sotomayor, who's another woman, Hispanic, and now it's the Black people's turn. right?
So you're seeing this more as a win for women, but not as a win for the Black community.
Oh, absolutely not. She's got a job, and that's it. So and no shade against her. I mean, great. She's earned the position. She's super qualified. All of that stuff. People were making a big deal about her qualifications. It was just really about her being Black, and you know, and then on top of that, part of the confirmation process where there were certain questions that she wouldn't answer and all this other stuff. I don't care about any of that. She's the first. It's a nice little history thing. She's got a great job, and it's a win for women. Now, as far as what she's going to do as a judge, that's where it's problematic for me, because I'll tell you this. You know, I think Better You said he didn't really look into her history. I mean, when stuff like this comes up, when the Democrats present people to us, I start looking at them, and this is what all of us need to start doing. What's their history? What have they done to actually empower Black people? Have they helped Black people in any way? Especially when they start talking about, you know, and there's some other content creators, and I don't want to give them a shout on your platform. But we talk about, you know, if everybody's so Black, then what have they done for Black people? You know, how have they empowered Black people? And we're not talking about, you know, just getting a job. We're talking about economically, politically, socially. How are they moving us up the ladder? How are we closing that gap? These are questions that we got to be asking. And now she can't really do it from a justice position as part of SCOTUS, but what she can do is, you know, put pressure to actually uphold parts of the Constitution that actually apply, and they're supposed to apply specifically to Black people and supposed to help us. And actually, whenever a lawsuit comes up, or whenever a question comes before the court, and this is me talking, I'm not even an attorney. I know it kind of sounds like I know something, but I don't. Well, I study criminology, right? So that's why I know a bit of it. But when it comes to something that's actually related to Black people, that's supposed to empower us, that's consistent with the Constitution, because you have to remember, and I don't want to talk about this too much because I know I'm kind of long-winded, but that's consistent with the Constitution. If it's supposed to help us, then it better help us. You know, don't vote against us. Don't do anything shady. Don't make it look like, oh, well, you know, I can't do this, I can't do that. It's supposed to be consistent with the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments, which is specifically written to help Black people. Those are our Constitution, or correction, those are our amendments. There's known collectively, I don't know if you know this, as the Reconstruction Amendment. So when something like that comes up, then she's supposed to be voting, and I'm expecting her vote to actually always be in favor of us, because a lot of people don't really notice, but the 14th Amendment is literally the amendment that's used for a lot of these cases that go before the Supreme Court. Did you know that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so there you go. How about you, Shay? Were you aware of that the 14th Amendment is used for most of these court cases? That everything that goes before the Supreme Court.
I'm familiar with it, but I am not an expert as far as how it is, you know, applied on a daily basis. But I am familiar with it.
Well, just real quick, 13th Amendment was the one that actually ended involuntary servitude. They like to say involuntary servitude versus Black enslavement, because that's what it really was, right? Remember, except for punishment, except for if you get punished for a crime. So technically, slavery has not ended. Involuntary servitude has not ended, because you can still be punished. You can be penalized and go to jail and still actually be technically back in slavery. All right. Now, the 14th Amendment actually references citizenship, because there was a question about citizenship for Black people at the end of the Civil War. What we're going to do with all these free people, these freedmen who are just now released from enslavement. So it answered the question of citizenship. It also answered the question of equal protection under the laws and due process. Due process is basically all of us get treated equally. And when I say equally, I don't mean that I'm half-hearted or halfway or three-quarters of the way. I'm talking about whatever white people get, that's what Black people are supposed to get. So we know that's never been happening. We know that we don't still have that to this day. So that's what the 14th Amendment really speaks to. Due process, equal protection under the laws, and citizenship. So, and that is the constitutional amendment that literally comes before the court more than probably any other case people relate that to. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And I know that the interpretation of a law has everything to do with it, because just because you have a law, it's how it's interpreted. And that's what it's interesting. It's interesting how in ABC, she was like, I'm not going to take race into consideration. Now, that could have just been the politically right response that she had to give, because we know the way these laws are oftentimes applied and interpreted have everything to do with race and class all the time. The people's biases are always weighing in and out of how they rule. So, yeah, no, I totally agree.
Yeah,
also, real quick, I want to shout out, give some special shout out to the Cash Apps I just saw come through. Shout out to Dapper Gents again with the 5 on the super chat, the sponsor of the week. We got in the building. I appreciate you. Also, shout out to L. Nixon, the voice of reason. It says peace and blessings. Much appreciated. Also, shout out to Don DeMarco with the 2 on the super chat. I see bingo. Yep. And then Kevin C. I see. Hey, Shay, you're back with another burner. Great commentary.
Yeah, I try to help you out, financially, because I try to support all the creators.
No, I appreciate it, and like I said, people like you, it really does make a difference because, like I said, I do my part to try to bring content that's entertaining or educational, informative, everything. But again, this is a group effort. I do. I need the support and help in order to keep this going. So I very much appreciate it.
Yeah, so I know I just talked a whole lot, but now I'm gonna tell you where Ketanji Brown Jackson, KBG, can actually hurt Black folks. And she's already has and remember, she has if you understand her history, she actually has a couple of cases. And I know one specifically in the Lockheed Martin case, which was really an open and shut case where all she had to do was just basically sign off on the paperwork and say, you know what, this is a racism lawsuit. This is a clear-cut case of racism. Bam, Black folks, here's your millions of dollars. Go ahead and have a nice day. Cut the check, right? Mm-hmm. She voted against it. So right there, as far as I'm concerned, I'm done.
Was there an explanation of her decision?
So, there was a lot of legal splaining. Because when people explain stuff, I try to add a name to it. But they tried to couch it in a way that was confusing for the layman, so that way you don't look into it too deep and ask too many questions. But at the end of the day, when you vote against something that's an absolute clear-cut case, because if you understand that Lockheed Martin case, literally there was a guy who was, of the people without melanin group. I call them PWMs, right? People without melanin group. And basically, he was literally coming to work saying what he was going to do, talking, using racial slurs, being openly racist. And it fostered an environment, a hostile environment for all of these employees. And this was the same guy who comes in later on and goes on an unaliving spree. And he targeted literally Black people. It was an open and shut case. I could have made the decision on that. I could have said, when you bring that to me, well, that's an easy thing. Like anybody could have made that decision, and she went the wrong way. And when she went specifically against Black folks, and if she's going to do that, basically, that's one of the reasons that she's up there, because what is demonstrating is that she has no compunction or no resistance or no fight as far as, okay, well, if you tell me what to do, then I'll go ahead and do it. I'm not going to fight against it. You see what I'm saying?
Can you guys please keep your stuff on mute if you're not talking? If I mute you, it's not because I don't want you to talk. It's just I don't want to hear the background noise while the other person is talking. So, sorry, you can continue.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I'll go ahead and stop right there. But does that make sense what I just said?
Yes, sir. It does. It does.
Yeah, because I've done that. Yeah, I tried to do a little. Yeah, I tried to do a. Hey, call me back. Yeah, I've tried to do a little bit of homework on this. So, but yeah, I'll go ahead and hold up for a second.
No, I hear you. To be honest, like I said, I haven't done probably nearly as much homework as I could. So I did only a brief deep dive. I was aware of, some of the different charges that they had made towards her regarding being lenient on, I don't even know if I can say the word, but lenient on people who had issues with children. I'll say it like that. So I read into that, and I heard, some sources debunking it and saying, no, because other current Supreme Court judges have ruled in the same fashion. So I heard that one. And then I did hear or read something briefly about, I think the cases that you considered where there was cases that she had ran that it was dealing with racial discrimination, and the majority of the cases she ruled against it. I think there were 2 or 3 where she did not, where she ruled in favor of acknowledging that there's racial discrimination, but many of them she didn't. So, but I didn't really read deeply into the details, because it is very easy to just kind of make an assumption without really understanding the details or what's going on. So that's why I'm kind of until I really fully know, then I can only go off of what we do know on on the basic optics, and I don't want to judge her prematurely. So, But if anyone has, other information or done other deep dive, I'm like, I'm open to hearing it because I don't pretend to be an expert on her background, if I'm being honest. So
I don't have a huge deep dive, but I did have something to say. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. What I thought was interesting, and I guess a little bit more fun to think about, because you guys are doing a deep dive. I just wanted to interject and say this one thing. She could be, I don't know if she is, but it's very interesting with all this Divesters talk lately, whether she could be classified as one or not. I found it very interesting that in the courtroom, the person who truly had to come to her rescue was a Black man. With all of the things that she's been, it almost took like this modern day slavery like take on it. And maybe I'm diving too damn deep, but it felt very much like the slave master in the quarters, and then coming back, and then like the Black man had to be like the one to stand up, even though you with the white man. Like it's like some people could watch that and think that Cory Booker was indeed her husband instead of the actual man as her husband. Was anyone thinking like that?
It just looked like a show to me, though.
I mean, indeed it was a show, but Cory Booker, he went to bat like a lot of Black men would do aimlessly all the time, automatically. He just went to bat so hard, and I just couldn't imagine her husband going to bat for her like that. It's almost like she longed for that.
I would say the thing to kind of keep in mind with Supreme Court hearings, and this is what I was kind of getting at the beginning where I said I hadn't had a chance to look too deeply in it because I've only looked about 30 minutes from Google searching into her, which is nothing in terms of a justice. But these hearings are always a dog and pony show. You have one side who's opposed, who doesn't want them to get on the bench at all costs. And the people who are from the same party as them, or who nominated them rather, they're always going to do whatever they can to try to put them over. So the optics of a hearing really is everybody doing their job. The Republicans attacking and grilling her, they're doing their job. The Democrats standing up for them, they're doing their job.
Could you say that since it is theater, not to cut you off, could you say that since it is a sense of theater to it, does it mean that what Cory did was disingenuous?
I don't think it means that it's disingenuous in so much as like he doesn't necessarily believe in it, but he has motivations.
He went super hard.
Yeah, I mean, he has multiple motivations. Really, that's all it is. It's a confluence of things. Yeah, I don't know.
I found it very interesting, like with the dynamic of who she's with. I just could, even if he wasn't a doctor, I mean, they made sure they framed the nice picture of him like kissing her really hard, passionately, like yes, but what really happened in that courtroom was a display of what we all go through as Black men, where no matter who they're with and what they're doing, we got to put that cape on. I just thought it was really interesting.
It's funny you say that you got to put that cape on because you're pushing the narrative of like, Black men are, or not pushing a narrative, but you're basically saying like Black men are always in positions where they're having to really save and and protect, and all we hear is that Black men don't ever protect Black women. That's all.
Yeah, that's why I found it so interesting, because he automatically did that.
One of the things that I look at it from and this is just me, and I can't really speak for anybody else, so I'm trying to kind of limit it to how I feel about it. But who she's married to is immaterial and secondary. Matter of fact, tertiary for me. I'm looking at, what are you doing? How are you, advocating in a way that helps the collective of your group? So if she can do that, if she's in a position of power where she can actually do that, regardless of who she's married to, I'm fine with it. I just think
it's interesting and something to talk about, because can you see President Obama with the white wife being treated, how he was treated and held in high regard, and people hearing him out and things and looking up to him in some sense? There's none of that if he had a white wife.
No, absolutely no way. If he had a white wife, he wouldn't have made it into the white.
It's no way. I mean, am I wrong?
No, we all know that.
I mean, I like, just, can you hear me? You know what I'm saying? Like, because I just, I would like to not look at the optics that way, but I could not help when Cory Booker jumped in the fire so ferociously. I was just like, and we keep hearing protect Black women. He just gave a full display, whether it was genuine or not. It just was very interesting to me, like the dynamics, her having the husband that's white. Not a lot of people been talking about that, and I just thought it was interesting. That's all.
Well, I heard people talk about her having the white. I mean, that was the whole.
Yeah, I'm talking about Corey. How
okay.
hard Corey went. If you watch that whole hearing, he went so hard, like really hard.
It's a bit too dramatic for me.
It was very dramatic, which made me like, damn, is he there? Is he trying to get like somewhere with that or what? Like, is that?
Well, there's nothing wrong with bigging up somebody. I can appreciate that.
Yeah, I actually appreciated it, but you know, it's the world we live in. It's 2022. Everything looks, but is it really that? You know, I don't know.
Right. Real quick, I want to acknowledge Don DeMarco with the 5 on the super chat. So I do see she wasn't chosen for being the most qualified or having a stellar record. She was chosen to solidify Black women for the next election. I do appreciate the support. Also, again, shout out to the sponsor of the week, Dapper Jinx with the 5, with the super sticker. Guys, if you're on here, get those likes up, tag anybody, or share this is someone that you think may find it interesting. Super chats are open. Also, you can find me on Cash App or Venmo, Shay Sade. And if you would like to call in, feel free to do so. I still have a few more minutes before
that's all I wanted to say, you guys. Love your show.
Well, I appreciate you calling in.
Yeah, that last super chat, and I forget, you just had it on the screen. It was half right. It was literally half right. It wasn't. It was
the one from Don DeMarco. This one.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Here we go. So he's actually he's good, but he's half right. She actually is the most qualified. She actually has more experience than all these other judges on the court right now collectively. When you go down a checklist, somebody actually did this. They did a nice little checklist, graphics, and all this other stuff. You know, they highlighted and put it in these cute little boxes. But really, she actually is more qualified than a lot of those other judges. So I have no doubt that she's going to actually interpret the Constitution and do what she's supposed to do as it relates to that. But that being said, again, she's also demonstrated a propensity to go against, her own group, and that's where it's problematic for me. But he is right in the fact that it is a win for women, and that's what I said right off the rip. It absolutely is a win for women because not just you got the white one, the Hispanic one, and not a Black one. There you go. All we need is an Asian.
Right. And that's what I was saying before. I was like, I don't expect anything different than what's happened. I'm all for, because for example, like obviously I love Black people, I love the Black community, but if I know somebody that's Black and they're doing wrong, it's just like, just because you're Black doesn't mean I'm going to cape for you if you're doing something wrong. So I do understand that, but unfortunately we know far too often that the system is used to oppress or overlook Black people, Black and brown people who are innocent. Right. And they're still adjudicated, or they're still treated poorly or given harsher sentences, things like that. So that is, of course, where you would hope that somebody would be sensitive to that, which is why her comment, in ABC, where she's like, oh, I'm not really going to take words into consideration. I'm like, okay, well, I wonder if that was just her saying that to be politically correct, or if she really is not she's really not sensitive to the fact that we're not all treated equally. Black, brown, white, they're not treated equally under the law, generally speaking. And I would hope that somebody like her would be aware of that. And to your point, really make sure that they are given those allowances where they need it. So, and I guess time will tell, but, I don't think history has shown up to this point that she's, like I said, she's qualified, but I don't see her necessarily going out of her way to really try to, really try to impact the Black community. I think it was just more about her, her family and her goals and her inner circle. And so I'm like, I'm happy for her, but like I said, I don't know if we just got to put all this unnecessary pressure on her or these unrealistic ideas that she's going to do all these things that she probably won't. I think it's going to be status quo. But that's just me.
Yeah, well, remember, you already have Clarence Thomas, who's already been there for a good, few decades. So not much has changed. As a matter of fact, you can argue that, Black wealth rights to some extent have been degraded. and he hasn't really done that much. Now, the only guy I really give any serious credit to is Thurgood Marshall, because he was the first, and he actually was appointed at a time of heightened racism and a whole bunch of other stuff that was going on. So even though he just showed up, he was going to be very limited in what he was going to be able to do. But at the same time, just him getting in the door was kind of enough. But we're past the in the door stuff now. Now you got to produce. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
Exactly.
And that's what I'm saying. I think a lot of this stuff, I think because there's so much symbolism and so many people, not everybody, but so many people are pacified by the symbolism, the same issues can continue to perpetuate. Because they're like, oh, well, there's a Black person here, so I guess it can't be racist. It's like, yeah, like there haven't been racist people literally using Black folks since slavery times to continue to promote white supremacy or just, discrimination. That does happen, by the way.
Absolutely, yeah.
So,
and that, honestly, there are a lot of Black folks out here that, I probably shouldn't say a lot, but there are a lot of Black folks when it comes to self-hatred. Like they straight up caricatures of Uncle Ruckus from the Boondocks. Like some of the most hateful things I've ever encountered have been from other Black folks who have that particular mindset.
I don't know if it's hatred as more as just naivete. I get frustrated sometimes. One of the reasons I like, talking to certain people, and I kind of limit the people I talk to, is that, man, if you're way off and you're just talking as if you don't know what it is you're talking about, I can't deal with you. I can't have a conversation because, and I'm not saying anybody's stupid. I'm just saying they don't know. So when this election was coming up, I just happened to run into an older Black gentleman, and we were having a conversation about the election, and basically he was just going to vote Democrat. And I started talking about the issues, and he was just completely lost on any of the issues. And I was talking about, and everything for me is, from a Black perspective, perspective of Black men in America, from that lens. And he just, and he wasn't the only one. There were other people too. And I'm like, but he just seemed really lost. And I'm like, you're just going to vote just to, get it in. And, what about the issues and all this other stuff and this, that, and the third. So no. So I don't want to say people are stupid. They're just ignorant of the facts, and they just haven't done any research. And if they get informed, then they might have a different opinion. You see what I'm saying?
No, I do. Yeah, I think there is a difference between ignorance, miseducation, and stupidity. And I do agree that sometimes it's just like, yeah, you don't know what you don't know. And I think that's how it is for most people. They just don't know. And then some people, they get misinformation.
Yeah.
Right. But I think it's very few where it's just like, no, you are actually just unintelligent. Like you don't have the capacity to understand things. Like I think that's very few people.
Yeah, we do have the Uncle Ruckus out there, and yeah, we can't work with him. He's nice he's fun at parties though. He or she. But I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, I'll just mute real quick. I'm running. I'm outside getting my workout in. I'm sorry.
You said getting workout in.
Okay, yeah, I'm multitasking. I've been in grad school. I got to get it when I can.
I'm not mad. No, I think that's good. That's what I was doing before I hopped on.
That's gangster. Hey, one other thing I'll say as it relates to this, it's interesting because I almost feel like that criminal, that little bit of the 18 hours criminology that I took actually is paying off for once.
Okay.
Yeah. But constitutionally speaking, so SCOTUS is the Supreme Court of the United States. The judges are mandated really to interpret the Constitution in the same way or very close as possible to who we refer to as the founding fathers intended. The problem is that, things have changed over time. That's how you get amendments to the Constitution. We have 27 amendments to the Constitution. And like I said earlier, the 13th, 14th, and 15th amendments were specifically written for Black people, known as the Reconstruction Amendments. They were from 1865 to 1877, right? For that time frame, because they had to answer, what are we going to do with all of these freed 4 million folks that we just had in enslavement? And what are we going to do with them? How are we going to, give them some kind of identity, give them some kind of rights, and just make sure they don't get mistreated? That was supposed to square us away. And if everything had happened perfectly, then that's all you would need, just those 3 amendments. You realize that from 1865 all the way up until 1965, there are almost 20 pieces of legislation to actually ensure rights to Black people, just basic civil rights. We're not talking about anything special, no, nothing more, than anybody else, just the basic civil rights. And when I say that, I'm talking about what white folks get, right? So
Yeah.
we've had 20 pieces of legislation, and you know what? We still are not where we're supposed to be on that. So it's not about the legislation, it's about enforcement.
Exactly. And that's what I'm saying. This whole show, the symbolic, like, oh, we passed this law, passed that law. It's like, hey, if you actually just followed the Constitution, you wouldn't need all these. You wouldn't need all these this amendment, that amendment, and not, like, if you actually just did what it said, that would actually, it'd be fine. But I think going back to your point, it's not just about the law. It actually does have to be interpreted, and it has to be, followed and applied. And if it's not, then you're going to just continue to create these laws and act like things are changing, and it continue to be the same thing because the root issue isn't being addressed.
Absolutely.
And that is partially that you have, if you get people in positions of power who are about the status quo or about whether it's perpetuating discrimination, racism, whatever it may be, if you continue to elect those people, they're gonna look at the law and use it in their favor.
Absolutely. But yeah, I wanted to, I'll give somebody else a chance to talk. I don't want to, talk too much, but this is one of the things that's very interesting to me, only because, I know something about it. I try to do a bit of the research, and then, like I said, for me, it's a nice, history making point, a nice job for her, a bit of recognition. But and the effort is, and this is supposed to actually carry over, and so there's some political links to this as well. This is supposed to be some bit of energy roll over into the election to try to get more support for the Democrats. But remember, there's a lot of bad things happening out here to Black folks, and people are upset. You literally have people who voted for Biden making videos all over the place. They're all over the TikTok, all over the social media, all over the YouTube. They're like Puffy, all up in the videos talking about what Biden has not done.
Oh, a lot of people are not happy with this administration. A lot, I think their polling is pretty good. So
no, there's tons of folks who are very, very upset. I mean, frankly, with what's happened is a lot of what the true critical analysis beforehand of Biden was, which was largely he's an agent of the status quo, always been an agent of the status quo to uphold it. So at a time when you have a massive upheaval of I'm winded. When you have a massive upheaval in society, trying to keep the little nudges and changes around the edges is not going to get society back to where it was. You need a transformational change, and he's never been that person. I view him as being very inept. I view him as being just absolutely horrible. And there's a lot of young people that feel that way, as I do.
Yeah, and like I said, I wasn't when he got in office. I think there were just so many people out there. At least listen. I would say I'm in California, so the vibe out here is a lot different. But I'm out here in Bay Area, California, where everything is as liberal as it can possibly be. And they were just trying to find reasons to just get Trump out. And so I think with that, they were so blindsided by that they kind of forgot about the fact that, like, it was like, hey, he's just going to be status quo. And I think at the time, between the pandemic and, jobs, and out here, it was shut down, and it was crazy. I think certain people were just like, you know what, we just want the status quo. Like, we're even okay with that. But I really didn't expect anything. I'm like, we kind of know based upon his history what's going to be happening. So I was not surprised that there wasn't really anything delivered, because I'm like, well, duh, that's what the status quo kind of does. Like, are we really that upset? Like, were we really expecting him to come in here and just fulfill everything he said? Like,
people who are not politically informed expected him to be different, because he was telling them he was going to be different. He was hitting all the bullet points, all this other stuff, and he was hitting all the stuff about the racism and the systemic this and the institutional that and all this other. I mean, he was hitting them all. I was listening to him. I'm like, this dude is playing y'all. And you know what? He is what he is.
I don't know. I didn't really, for the most part, when it came to like the debates and his rhetoric, I saw like a lot of half measures. I saw blatant lies, and I saw a lot of nothing. Like, to me, he the first president to keep his promises, because he ain't promised you nothing.
Yeah, no. Here's what he did. He was very slick about it. He was very slick. He was like, we acknowledge the existence of, and we got to do something about it. He didn't say what he was going to do. He just said, we got to do something about it. We need to address that. And, and whatever. See what I'm saying? Like, that's how you get people in. So you have to, people say that they're going to do something. Ask them what they're going to do. What you going to do? Don't talk about, you've acknowledged that there's a problem. Now, how are you going to solve the problem? Well, here's what we're going to do. So now he's got to give you something tangible so that way you can measure it against versus, well, we acknowledge the existence of this, and this is a problem, and we need to address that. That's how he answers stuff. So people hear that and they go, oh, he's going to do something. See what I'm saying?
You're right. You're right there, because I will acknowledge that exactly was the whole campaign, which to me, as somebody who has a little bit of an ear for politics, it's nothing. Exactly. Like, I need an active plan. What you gonna do?
We just had our United States government announce that the KKK is a terrorist organization. Okay, great. What you gonna do? They ain't saying nothing about what they're gonna do to deal with that, right? They acknowledge it's a terrorist organization. Okay, great. Now what you gonna do to fix it? Oh, well, splaining here, splaining there, a little bit more splaining, but hey, we acknowledge it. See what I'm saying?
I remember, what was it? I can't even remember the exact event, but when they had Hillary was out there wearing those dashikis, and you had those different politicians wearing those like African garbs or whatever. What was, I don't remember what that was.
That was in response to the George Floyd event.
I was like, oh my God, the pen, it was just too much. It was too much. So the stuff like that is symbolic. Like, what is you wearing a dashiki? Okay, great. What is that? How is that helping the situation? What is that even doing to address what needs to be addressed?
Well, that is the official, unofficial response to anything as it relates to Black folks.
Right.
When everybody else gets harmed or aggrieved in some way, they got to fix it. They got to address it. So this is the reality of us not really coming together and actually, having, the people that develop from the grassroots that we actually know about who have a proven record of doing something and actually producing tangible results. And the other part too is just their unofficial policy is to, hey, just make them feel good, give them some emotional stuff, but don't really do anything. Put on a kente cloth, take a knee, acknowledge the terrible incident as it relates to George Floyd and everything that surrounds that. But you better not make no laws, and you better not give them any money, and you better not making any apologies. Just give them a nice little simple acknowledgement, and that's going to be it. Take a knee, and that's that, and we'll do that. See what I'm saying?
Yeah. No, I 100% agree, and I feel on some level too. There's been I can't really point back to a specific thing, but over the years, it seems like there's been a conditioning of some symbology in the Black community to where it went from tangible demands to like people feeling like it's a win for somebody to say like, oh, Black Lives Matter, or Black men shouldn't be slain, or just acknowledge that something is a problem. And I don't know, like, go ahead.
Well, this is just, I'm gonna do a Stephen A. Smith. This is just me, my personal observation. Nothing else, just me. We dropped the ball. Not coming out of the 1960s, there was a lot of momentum as it relates to what could have been done as far as producing measurable, tangible results. And then there was a period where all of that stuff stopped, and it didn't really stop on its own. It had some help from the government, by the way. COINTELPRO, the political targeting and assassination of important Black leaders. And then, putting people in jail and all this other stuff and everything else, disenfranchising the community, attacking the money and all this other stuff. That's how you break up a movement. And when the laws got made, people go, okay, so now we have something that says 1964. So several things came out of the Civil Rights Movement. 1964, 1965, 1968. The Civil Rights Act, the Voting Rights Act, and the Fair Housing Act. To include, there was another thing that was thrown in there too, the Immigration Act, by the way. So Black people actually did get all of that stuff done. The issue, again, was the enforcement of it. And because people kind of thought, okay, so we got the laws, we're in a new day, we're gonna dismiss all the other stuff that's happened in the past. Now we're gonna start fresh, and we want to see the enforcement. And what you got was half-hearted enforcement. What you got was selective enforcement. What you got was, it applies to everybody else, but we're gonna meander our way and kind of explain it when it comes to y'all, so that way we don't give you the full benefits of all of those. We're talking about, I just named off 4 pieces of legislation: 2 in 65, 1 in 64, and 1 in 68, right?
Yes, sir.
That literally should have ended all of that. And here we are. We're still having people whining about, well, my house is not getting appraised properly. There's a Fair Housing Act that literally covers that. You can sue people based off that.
Yeah. We just had that not too long ago up here in my backyard.
Yeah. So, and then later on, we had the black president. And then, you know, there was a point in the 1980s. I don't know how old you guys are, but the end of the 1970s, going into the 80s, there was a point of relative calm as it relates to race relations. If anybody kind of remembers that time period, there was a point of relative calm, but it started to pick back up in the 1990s because you started to see, you know, people who were doing things that were openly racist, and you're like, wait a minute, I thought we were done with this. And then people didn't really address it, and then it got worse and worse and worse. And then Trump shows up, and everybody's like, okay, we're back on. Now we're back at this again. You see what I'm saying? So basically, every 20 to 30 years, you know, folks got to be reminded, and so do black folks too. So, but I think after this, we don't need any more reminders. We need to stay focused and stay on the ground with this. You see what I'm saying?
Right. Yes, right. Real quick, I want to give a shout out to TJ Hanna with the $4.99 on the super chat. I see after Barack. So after Barack, can we expect any black politicians to provide support of our legislative needs? Subway shooting in New York City will lead solutions for others. I just heard that there was a shooting. I guess earlier today.
It was early this morning.
Ooh, that's crazy.
10 people injured. No one's deceased though. Which is good. The whole thing is unfortunate, but yeah.
Hey.
Yeah. Outside.
Shout out. Okay. And again, shout out to Dapper Gents with the 5 on the super chat. So guys, looks like the call line's pretty quiet today, so I'll probably wrap it up pretty soon. But if you guys have any final thoughts or anything you want to leave or anything else you want to touch on before I wrap it up, let me know.
Well, I actually got one last question I'd like to ask Mr. Kevin. Mm-hmm. You said that you felt the ball was dropped. Do you feel that in some ways, like what you were talking about with the Fair Housing Act and certain legal repercussions that are in place for these discrimination that we face, do you feel that it's a bit of, or largely due to ignorance, that there are these things already there, or just that people got apathetic and aren't paying attention?
It's a combination of both. I can guarantee you most people don't know about any of those pieces of legislation that I just talked about, to include the fact that there's a bit of apathy as it relates to what we need to do about it. Here's one of the issues that we're running into. It's resource-based. Okay, so if you are discriminated against as it relates to housing, okay, yeah, you might have a case, but what can you do with that when you don't have the resources to back it up, when there's not an agency in place or organization that actually provides that? We don't have that's the issue with us, is collectively as a group, we don't have the capital in order to go and attack these things and actually deal with it properly. And on top of that, the political structure that we have in place, not even a political structure, the politicians that we have in place who's supposed to be representing us on our behalf that we put in office, again, they're not doing anything, and there's no punishment for it because we can't get rid of them because people keep voting them in. So, I mean, we put Biden, we helped get Biden in office when we know he has a track record. He literally had racist statements going all the way back to the 1960s. He's a 1994 crime bill, author. He's the guy who said, if you don't vote for me, you ain't black. I mean, doggone, like, well, what else do we need to tell you? To include his VP telling us, well, I ain't gonna do nothing for y'all, or just only for black folks. Like, everything was there. It's just that folks are just not really informed. So part of our education, in addition to history, needs to be about political, economic, social empowerment, and what we need to do as a group in order to get that done. I don't think you can just limit it to history. I think you got to be well-rounded in all those aspects. So yeah, it's a bit of apathy, but it's resource-based. What can we actually do? Because I can tell you right now, if somebody in the Asian community was aggrieved, they have the money to take it to court. That's why they don't get messed with a lot. Yeah. See what I'm saying? That's how they got that bill very quickly.
Well, they also have, because if you think about it, you said in the Asian community, they have the leverage of their country. Right, like you have Chinese ambassadors, and I remember my husband, honestly, he was the one that was breaking this down to me, and I was like, oh, that makes so much sense. How, like, if you have other other nations, right, and there's other and how like those ambassadors can essentially put political pressure on them and be like, hey, we found out, you know, somebody you were misrepresenting or you were treating bad the Chinese community. Like, what's going on? If it becomes an issue, they can start to put political pressure against them. We don't really have that. We don't have that with the Black community. It's not like, you know, somebody gets shot and you're going to have a, you know, ambassador call up from who knows another nation to be like, hey, what's going on? You're mistreating our people. If you continue to do that, we're not going to trade with you anymore, or we're going to start to put, you know, pressure on you. Like that happens with other communities internally within this nation, but even like internationally. So, and like I said, honestly, I didn't even really understand that until more recently. I'm like, oh, it does start to make sense why you literally don't see some of these other communities being treated a certain way, because they have the political power and leverage and the resources, not only here, but even internationally. So
absolutely. You would think the AU would actually intervene on our behalf. AU is the African Union, but if you want to talk to an international body, but in the overall scheme of things, they seem powerless in a lot of ways. Because look how, you know, people were being treated coming out of the Ukraine. See what I'm saying?
Yeah,
absolutely. No, absolutely. I think that's a prime example. Yeah, and it's so crazy. I mean, that's a whole nother topic. Just looking at Ukraine and how the U.S. That's a whole nother topic. That had me on here for another hour because there's so much to unpack there.
Definitely.
Shout out again to Dapper Gents with the support. I really appreciate it. I do see you on the super chat. Also, I appreciate the $10 Cash App I just saw come through, guys. If you'd like to show support to the show, you can find me on Cash App or Venmo. Also, I see Cash App on the Roger Project. I see, okay, K Brown is a woman literally being led by a white man in her personal life. This isn't a win for Black men. Sisters will see it as a win, though. I do agree. You know, I honestly, I have to do my research. I have to see what is happening in the female space regarding this. But I do know, you know, based upon that article that Ralph Richard Banks had posted a few days ago, where he was really bigging her up and her white husband. I mean, that article was definitely pandering to women. So I'm like, I'm sure there's women who are looking at this as a win just because she's with a white husband, not even really thinking about the policy, not thinking about what she's actually going to do. I'm like I said, I'm happy for her personally. I really am, and her family. But apart from that, I kind of have I have the same expectations that I have when most politicians get into power. I'm like, well, it's just going to be the status quo. I'm not expecting them to, you know, largely impact much of anything. But that's just me. I don't want to be like sound like a cynic, but that's just my honest perspective when most people end up being affected. So
hey, to your point about how we don't really have, you know, any international agency or body, you got to remember we're kind of we're so far removed from the continent of Africa. We're literally 500 plus years removed from the continent, even though, of course, our DNA, phenotypes, and all this other stuff, and genetics.
Yeah,
we're literally on an island by ourselves. And you know, people talk about Pan-Africanism. The only problem with the Pan-Africanism thing is that it's been mostly one-sided. I mean, there are people who can go to the continent. There are people living in Ghana, some in there was what was the country, Rwanda, some other countries, and everything else, and they do accept folks over there. But it's not so much to the extent that it makes any political or economic impact that would, you know, entice the African Union to get involved more on our behalf. You see what I'm saying?
So I would challenge you a little bit on the 500 years, because, and this actually fits perfectly into the conversation. I think I'm going to be having another interview later on this week with the historian Jahi Itza, because you know, if you actually, and we talked about this before, I think I mentioned this in the members only tab, but essentially many of the slaves were actually, majority of them were brought over after 1808. Like, for example, my great grandmother came over from Africa. Like, I have her documentation. I mean, many of them coming over in the 19th century, a large population. So we're not talking 500 years. Some of us, you're talking our great grandparents or great grandparents.
So that would be about 150, 200. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's so in that perspective, it's not necessarily that far. And even if we look at it, if we think of other ethnic groups, I have, Chinese American friends, Italian American friends where they don't even necessarily, they don't know the exact date, but at the end of the day, they still identify with Italy, or they still identify with Poland or China. Like they don't see a separation, although they've been here for generations. And so I do understand what you're saying, where it's like, okay, there has been that separation, but why do we see for other cultures, even if they've been here for 3, 4, 5, 6 generations, they still recognize where they come from, and they still very much, whether it's going and visiting there for vacations, going back there to visit cousins or family or whatever it may be, like they're still investing in those places, they're still celebrating those holidays, they're still eating at those restaurants if they're there, like they're still very much involved in that culture to a certain extent. And I don't know, I think sometimes if we see that breakdown, I wonder if that's one of the reasons that there's so much disarray here. I don't know. I mean, I'm just putting it out there. I don't.
Well, that line was cut. It was cut intentionally. Some people refer to black enslavement. I call it. A lot of people like to say slavery. I like to say enslavement because that's an action, right? Somebody had to do the enslaving. But some people see black enslavement as an interruption, not so much our history, but it's an interruption as far as Africans are concerned. Africans are across the diaspora. It was an interruption, and then a lot of things got lost. So that explains the disconnect. So
there's a lot of disconnect. Like I said, there's a lot to unpack there for sure. Yeah. I mean, I think we can all agree that there's a lot of work that needs to be done within the black community, and there's a lot of room for improvement. I mean, we can all agree there. Because to your point, there's been, for quite some time, I think there's been a lot of symbolism, but there hasn't really been any strong institutional change that has legitimately positively impacted the black community. And while we'll see those tokens, we'll see people do good individually. And going back to what Ketanji Brown Jackson said, she was kind of like, our tenets are hard work and dedication. And so I mentioned that it's like she came from, both of her parents were educated, so she came from arguably a more privileged background. And so with that and hard work, she was able to get there. And you're going to have that in the black community. You're going to have people that through sheer hard work and dedication and opportunity, they'll be able to get there. But sometimes not everyone gets that equal opportunity. I know Mexican immigrants who work incredibly hard and are not racking in the dough like that, or are not going in, you know what I mean, and getting positions of power. They're working hard and they're struggling financially. You know what I mean? So it's not always just hard work that's going to get you to the top. Like sometimes you do need opportunity and access, and all those things do make a difference,
Yeah. And that kind of goes into my original point too, about corporate power. Like we have so much consolidation in the corporate environment here in America, which is where a lot of people work, especially in major cities, to the point where, wages, there really isn't a free market for labor. So a lot of people are getting a raw deal who are working 2, 3, 4 jobs where, they're working all these jobs and they're barely able to make rent, barely able to keep the lights on. And that's a big reason why, is all this consolidation of corporate entities.
Right now. And so that in of itself is a whole other topic when you're looking at just the distribution of wealth. It's funny because I see, like I said, I had the call lines open. I'm seeing all these trackers in here. I'm like, y'all could have called in. But anyways, I'm gonna wrap this up because I got some other stuff to do, y'all, and it's kind of quiet on the call line. So, do you guys have any other final thoughts you want to wrap this up with before I close out?
Yeah, I'll just go ahead, buddy. You go ahead. You good?
I'm good. Thank you so much for having me, Miss Shay. It's been great, like always, and I'll keep being great.
Thanks. Appreciate the support. What you got, Kevin C?
Roger, I would say just look at it for what it is, but at the same time, we actually, whenever people start getting in positions, whatever it is, justice, mayor, governor, if they're black, and especially if you're in a predominantly black town, we got to start looking for standard measure from point A to point B. Okay, you've had 6 months. What have you done? Show me something. Measurable results. I understand it's gonna be hard for KBJ to do it. I'm kind of getting her confused with RBG, right? But KBJ to do it. But when we're talking about mayors, governors, and people in real positions of authority, and it's not being effective, then we gotta put their feet to the fire and say, hey, bro, hey, bro, it's this, what are you doing? And, let's get things done. The other part, too, is that Black people as a collective have to become historically aware, politically aware, and more engaged. And you ain't got to go out and pound the ground and do the work, but you got to be knowledgeable so you can put the pressure on the people who are in the positions who are supposed to be doing it for you. One of the issues that I have is that there's this expectation that you're supposed to get up every day, Shay, get up every day, go to work, work a job, wear yourself out, come home, cook some dinner, spend some time with your family. And then on the weekends, be a weekend warrior and go out and pound the ground and do political work that the folks that you actually put in office are supposed to be doing. I'm like, no, I put you in office to do all of that. You're getting paid $100,000 or $200,000 or whatever, way more than I am to do that. And you're getting all these benefits and privileges and all this wonderful whatever. It ain't just cutting ribbons, man. You got to be producing stuff for us. So that's where we need to come in. I would say that would probably be the minimum we need to do, but we got to put pressure on the folks who are in these positions to actually get things done on our behalf, because no one else does that. So
no, I completely feel you on that. And I think it was great that you gave the example of the you said the older gentleman that you talked to that was just like, he just voted Democrat, and you were starting to talk to him about policy, and he was like, oh, I didn't know, he just voted. And that's what I said earlier. Like I was talking to my dad, and he was telling me how, like, he knows of churches, Black churches that are putting together, presentations and celebrations for Ketanji Brown Jackson just because she's Black, like not even which I get it, like, yeah, symbolic victory, but they're just behind it just because the person's Black. They're not even sitting down and looking at what's going on and like really trying to be aware. So to your point, there can be a level of accountability and be like, hey, okay, you're here, what are you doing? So it does need to extend beyond that, to your point. Just because the person is Black in office, you do want to actually see what they're doing and make sure that they're still doing their job. Right. Otherwise, it's just like, it's just symbolic. It's really just symbolic, and that does nothing. So
I'll tell you this, the one good thing is that younger folks, they're getting tired of the symbolism. They're like, hey, okay.
Yeah, no, they are.
I saw this one video with this one guy. He was really upset. I mean, this is when the protests, there was something else that happened as usual, but he was literally screaming at Joe Biden. Joe Biden, you said you were going to do something, and when you going to have our back? And he was screaming into the doggone, screen to the screen. And I'm like, okay, so yeah, the folks you remember, most of the change in these social movements led by the younger folks at any rate, because you get to a point where you get older, it's get harder to do, you get bogged down in family and work and all these other responsibilities.
Yeah,
I'm not saying that the younger folks don't, but I'm just telling you it's a combination of those things. So
yeah, that's fair.
That's the older folks for the mentorship and the guidance, and then that's where we all got to be working together to bridge that gap.
Yeah, so, that's facts.
But yeah, that's all I have, and it's great commentary. Good for bringing this up, and then the other part of it too, where they're using KBJ as an agenda to spread that whole go get yourself a non-Black man. That's a whole nother conversation.
That is a whole another conversation. And like, it was, to me, it was just like a weird stretch. I'll say this about the whole divester piece, right? Because I saw some people in the comments saying, oh, she's just a divester. I personally, I make a distinction between a divester versus somebody who was actually in an interracial relationship. Her being in an interracial relationship, I ain't seen her say nothing negative about Black men. She was over there praising her father for really helping to encourage her to go into law. I don't see her spreading any hatred. She just happened to fall in love with a white dude. To me, I ain't got no issue with that. To me, you're a divester when you start with the propaganda. You swear that you love white men, but you spend every 15 seconds talking about how horrible Black men are, and you don't really have the results. Like, to me, that's a divester, somebody who was using this whole interracial marriage as a reason to just spread misandry.
Roger,
Black misandry. So that to me, there is a distinction. Just because somebody is interracially dating, to me, does not mean that they are necessarily self-hating or a divester. I think the actions and the rhetoric really speak to it. But I do understand you're going to have people co-opt her relationship and just try to use it as a reason to try to say, oh, a Black man would never be in his position because he would be threatened, or weird stuff like that. And make it about something it ain't.
The thing I would say to that is, well, you got to remember, both of them met in college. I think they were both going to the same school.
Right, Harvard. Yeah.
Yeah, and they both met each other, fell in love, talked about their life goals and this and that, and they said, you know what? And he said, you know what? Let's get married. And she said, yeah. You know what? They built all that stuff together. So follow that trend. with regardless of race. Do that.
Right. The woman that I know who are in interracial relationships, it was that it was like a natural thing. It wasn't like they were going out and being like, oh, this black man asked me out, but I rejected him because black men are dusties, and they were putting off hateful energy. They were living their lives. They met a person, maybe in church, maybe in college, you know what I mean, maybe at work, and it was like, oh, we actually try to get along. To me, that's normal and healthy. Not you putting out all this hate and then trying to, look at white men as trophies and just try to get with them just because you want to make black men mad or just because you want to spite. Like that's weird. To me, that's weird.
I don't know if you're making black men angry as a collective though. Look,
you're not. No one cares. Like, we all know this, but I'm just saying, you see that talking point, especially when they're over there praising how amazing white men are and how loyal and faithful they are, and they're not married or in even a relationship. That, to me, when it's just like, okay, this is about attention. This is not about actual results. Because you can't say that and then you can't say white men are so loyal and make the best husbands and not be even in a relationship, not even engaged, not even dating, and not married. Stop.
I just started asking about the husband. I just started asking about the husbands. What does your husband have to say about all of this?
Right. So that's when we know it's like, okay, stop the cap. We know this is not actually about divesting. This is not about any relationship. This is just about getting attention.
Yeah.
So
but we just gotta be smarter as a group and move smarter. And the Army saying, one of the Army saying was work smarter, not harder. So yeah, we really have to do that. And there has been a confluence of events that has reignited the reality of a lot of black folks, and maybe not the older ones. You got some folks in the middle, but the younger ones are seeing it and they're like, hey, wait a minute. What's going on, bro? You know what?
Right.
Let's get some action. Show me some results. Show me your work. Show me your work. Put it on the wood. So that's what they're looking at. But at any rate, hey, I don't want to hold you up too much. Thanks for the conversation.
Yeah.
Very nice. And for once I actually got to throw out some of my criminology knowledge. Right?
You put all your learning to use.
Yeah. I try to come. We make fun of the liberal arts folks, but I guess I'm a liberal arts nerd. I'm a tech guy a little bit, but I'm not really all into that. But that's why you need a combination of both. You need the academics on the liberal arts side. You need the academics and the really smart folks on the STEM side. So you need a balance.
I'll be honest and say, like, my political understanding has been largely spurred on by my husband. Before I met him, I was not even really looking deep into politics like that. And it's funny because I remember when I was listening to, I think, Obsidian a while back, and he talked about how it's like, if you ever meet a woman that's talking about politics, either she's married, or he said something where it was just like, essentially, she's married, she's ugly, and she doesn't have any other option. Or she's an older woman or something that he kind of made these reasons as to why you'll find a woman who get in politics. I don't know that I completely agree with everything that he said, but I will say that my political understanding or interest was largely spurred on by my husband, because I wasn't thinking about some of the stuff before I met him, and I was like, oh, I guess you're right. Yeah, I guess you're right.
Husband and wives have really good conversations. My wife, she's from another country, so she explains to me what's going on politically in her country, because I'm an outsider looking in and I see the big picture, but I don't understand the nuances. People sit there and break it down to me, just like I can break down how it happens and how it works in the United States. So she's very intelligent to that extent. So he does have a point when it comes to that kind of goes to being what you call it, the equally yoked and like-minded stuff like that.
No, absolutely.
All right, hey, thanks for letting me on, and as usual, good talk. Appreciate you.
No, I do. Always a pleasure. I see, because typically sisters don't know much about politics. They just kind of vote. No offense. I'm not even offended. Because I definitely fit that stereotype. So I'm not even going to sit here and be mad at nobody, because that was me. And I know a lot of people who just do that. And so when I'm over here saying, look, y'all, don't be voting for nobody or just bigging somebody up just because they're black. Like, look at their results. I'm preaching to my old self, because it was like, I used to be that person that was just like, oh, okay, well, they're black, well, I should just vote for them. And I know that I'm sorry to say it. Okay, I was guilty of that. I know that's ignorant. Okay, I know better now, so I can try to do better. But that's a trap. And like I said, because that's just a lot of the stuff is just symbolic. A lot of the stuff is just, they're trying to fit quotas, but ain't nothing gonna change. And we'll see. We will actually see what happens for her. Like I said, I wish and hope for the best, literally. But also at the same time, I don't necessarily have any expectations of anything, dramatically changing. So that's just my perspective. Also, shout out to Better You. I see Joe better cancel those student loans. Everybody, literally, low key. I think if he just canceled the student loans or just did one thing that he said he was going to do, I do think that they would see a lot of improvement as far as they would get some more support. Just that, like, even if nothing else changed, if this cancel the student loan, he would get some more support. I'm not saying that's necessarily right, but I think if they did that, he definitely would, because people are struggling right now. Shout out to Deborah Jens again. Great content, sister. Keep up the good work and stay blessed. I appreciate you. I really do. Yeah, I appreciate all of you guys. So this has been fun. This has been a more chill conversation. I appreciate chill conversations because I know sometimes when you're talking about politics, it can get kind of lit and people can get in their feelings. So I'm glad everybody was pretty chill. You know what I mean? Everybody was on their behavior. Stay tuned. Throw crumbs. Like, literally, if people are so hungry, if you threw crumbs, you are right. Like, people right now are willing to accept the bare minimum, and that's not even happening. That's not even happening, y'all. So it's going to be interesting. But anyways, y'all, stay tuned for some upcoming lives and content. If you haven't already, hit the like button. Make sure you subscribe. Click the all notifications button, and stay tuned, y'all. Stay tuned, and yeah, we'll talk later. Bye.